Long ago, in a land filled with many gods and many fears, there lived a man named Abraham. At the time, his name was Abram. He was an ordinary man living an ordinary life, settled in a place called Ur with his family. He had routines, responsibilities, and a future that probably looked predictable. But one day, everything changed. Abram heard a call from God, a single powerful voice that spoke into his quiet life. God told him to leave his home, his relatives, and everything familiar, and to travel to a land God would show him later. There was no map, no clear directions, just a promise. God said that Abram would become the father of a great nation, that his descendants would be countless, and that through him all people on earth would be blessed. This was a shocking promise because Abram and his wife Sarai had no children, and they were already getting old. Still, Abram chose to trust God. He packed his belongings, gathered his family, and stepped into the unknown. That single step of faith marked the beginning of a journey that would change history. Abram traveled through unfamiliar lands, facing hunger, danger, and uncertainty. Life was not easy. At times, fear got the best of him, and he made mistakes. But even when Abram stumbled, God remained faithful. Over and over again, God reminded him of the promise that the land he walked on would one day belong to his descendants. As the years passed, the promise of a child seemed more and more impossible. Sarai grew impatient and discouraged. She laughed at the idea of becoming a mother in her old age. Abram also struggled with doubt, yet God did not withdraw his promise. Instead, God made a covenant with Abram, a sacred agreement, changing his name to Abraham, which means father of many nations. Sarai's name was changed to Sarah, meaning princess. God told Abraham to look up at the night sky. Count the stars, God said. That's how many your descendants will be. It was a breathtaking moment, a reminder that God's plans are often bigger than what human eyes can see. Then against all odds, the promise came true. Sarah became pregnant and gave birth to a son named Isaac, whose name means laughter. The joy was overwhelming. The impossible had happened. God had kept his word. But Abraham's faith would be tested one more time, more deeply than ever before. God asked Abraham to take his beloved son Isaac and offer him as a sacrifice. This request was painful and confusing. Isaac was the promised child, the fulfillment of everything Abraham had hoped for. Yet Abraham chose obedience, trusting that God somehow knew what he was doing. As Abraham prepared to carry out God's command, God stopped him. At the last moment, God provided a ram to take Isaac's place. This moment revealed something powerful, that God never intended to take Isaac, but to show Abraham and the world what true faith looks like. God reaffirmed his promise, blessing Abraham for his obedience and trust. Abraham lived a long life, never seeing the full fulfillment of God's promise, but believing it with all his heart. He died knowing that his story was part of something much bigger than himself. The story of Abraham is not just about ancient times or distant lands. It's about faith in the face of uncertainty. It's about trusting God when the future feels unclear. Abraham's journey reminds us that faith is not the absence of fear or doubt. It's choosing to move forward anyway. Through Abraham, we learn that obedience opens doors, patience builds strength, and faith connects us to a purpose greater than ourselves. His story invites us to ask a simple but powerful question. When called to step into the unknown, will we trust the promise even when we cannot yet see the outcome?